Let me illustrate a very common scenario where I've used adapter pattern in many different projects. Let's say we have some business object. Let's say this business object supports a single method named f. Let's also assume we have a set of clients that depend on this business object. Somewhere in their implementation, the clients will call the business object's method f. Now let's also assume that we find a much better implementation of the business logic. We may, for instance, find an open source project that implements exactly what we want, but much better. However, it turns out that although the better open source implementation implements exactly the same functionality, they have a different interface. The name of their function is G. Now we have a dilemma. If we introduce this new and better implementation, all our clients will have to change. The change may be trivial, but often it is risky and inconvenient, particularly if the clients are external organizations. This will of course be not good for our reputation and leads to very unhappy clients. The adapter pattern suggests a solution for this problem. The idea here is to introduce an intermediary object that translates from what the clients want to see into what the implementation requires. In our simplistic example, we would simply introduce an object that the client used that supports the method f. In the implementation of f, we simply call the better business object implementation's G method. Notice how we no longer require changes to the client's code. And over time, we can now remove the older business object without affecting the clients. Let's study this pattern in a UML class diagram. In our example, we had an old business object implementation that supported the method f. We found a better business object implementation that had the method G that was semantically equivalent to the old function f. For this to work, we need an interface that abstracts the old implementation. Normally that would be there in a good implementation, but if it wasn't there, we would have to introduce one. Now we need to introduce a new implementation of the business object implementation, or at least the interface, that we're going to call the adapter. The implementation of the f method in the adapter is quite trivial. It would have to forward to the new business object implementation and translate from f to G. To be able to forward to the new business object implementation, adapter would have to have a reference to the new business object implementation. Now, assuming that you already went through the pattern for proxy, this may at first look very similar to the proxy pattern. But notice here, the adapter is not forwarding to an object with the same interface, it's translating it from one form to the other. That makes it different from the proxy pattern.